The bus rumbled down the road. The night was dark. Fog curled around the bus like a ghostly shroud. Visibility was low. The headlights cut through the fog, revealing only a few feet of the road ahead. The driver, a burly man named Frank, gripped the steering wheel tightly. He'd been driving this route for years, but tonight felt different. There was an eerie silence in the air, broken only by the hum of the engine. Frank glanced at the clock on the dashboard. It was almost midnight. He was running late. The fog was slowing him down. He let out a sigh, feeling a shiver run down his spine. He wished he was at home, tucked away in bed. This night felt heavy, burdened with an unseen weight. The bus route was known as the Lonely Stretch. It wound its way through a remote, desolate area. There were no towns, no houses for miles, just dense forests that pressed close to the road, their branches like gnarled fingers reaching out into the fog. Frank had heard stories about this road, whispers of strange occurrences and unexplained events. He had always dismissed them as folklore, but tonight the stories felt unsettlingly real. The bus rattled over a particularly rough patch of road. The few passengers on board shifted in their seats. Most of them were asleep, their faces hidden in the shadows. The only light came from the dim overhead bulbs, casting long, eerie shadows that danced with the movement of the bus. Frank could feel his heart beating faster. He just wanted to get this route over with. The bus slowed to a stop. A figure stood at the edge of the road, shrouded in fog. Frank squinted through the windshield, trying to make out who it was. The figure stepped forward, and Frank's blood ran cold. It was a man, dressed in old, tattered clothing. His face was obscured by the shadows of a wide-brimmed hat. But the most unsettling thing was that he seemed to float just above the ground, his feet invisible in the fog. The figure glided onto the bus, his movements silent and unnatural. He moved down the aisle, his presence sending a chill through the air. He took a seat in the back, his form melting into the shadows. Frank stared at him in the rearview mirror, his mind struggling to grasp what he had just seen. The hair on the back of his neck stood on end. He had never believed in ghosts before, but now he wasn't so sure. As the bus continued down the road, the unsettling events only intensified. The lights flickered ominously, casting the interior of the bus into momentary darkness. The engine sputtered and coughed, as if struggling to keep running. The whispers from the back of the bus grew louder, more insistent, though still unintelligible. The passengers were now wide awake, their faces pale with fear. They exchanged uneasy glances, their eyes reflecting the growing terror that gripped them all. The young woman began to cry softly, her shoulders shaking with sobs. The older man gripped the seat in front of him, his knuckles white. No one dared to speak, but their eyes spoke volumes. They were trapped on a bus that was hurtling into the unknown, with a ghostly figure as their only companion. Suddenly the bus lurched violently. The engine sputtered one last time and died. The lights went out, plunging the bus into darkness. Screams filled the air as passengers were thrown from their seats. Frank slammed on the brakes, bringing the bus to a jarring halt. He fumbled for his flashlight, his heart pounding in his chest. When he finally managed to switch it on, he was met with a sight that made his blood run cold. The bus was empty. The passengers, the ghostly figure, all of them were gone, vanished without a trace. Frank was alone, surrounded by the darkness and the fog, the silence broken only by the sound of his own ragged breathing. He had never felt so terrified in his life. The disappearance of bus 375 sent shockwaves through the community. Search parties were dispatched, combing every inch of the Lonely Stretch, but the bus was never found. It had vanished, swallowed whole by the fog and the darkness, along with everyone who had been on board. Weeks later, a group of hikers stumbled upon a strange sight in the woods, near where the bus had last been seen. It was the fuel tank of a bus, ripped from its chassis. And as they watched in horror, a dark, viscous liquid began to seep from the opening. It wasn't gasoline, it was blood, human blood. The chilling truth was inescapable. Something horrific had happened on that foggy night, something that defied explanation. And the ghost of bus 375 continued to haunt the Lonely Stretch, a chilling reminder of the night the bus and its passengers vanished without a trace.